Alright guys, getting the week kicked off here. I got Steve's deluxe heater box from his car here. He still had it at his place, so I had to wait on him to bring it. So I'm going to be stripping this thing apart to restore it. I'm going to be doing a little customization to it to make it really nice. And we had this is the defrost duct for a 55, and I remember seeing that in his shop at his house, and back when I used to drive over there to work on his car there before it came here. And anyway, I told him, I said, I need that before I can put the wiper stuff in the car, because we're doing rain gear and it mounts behind the dash. And then after that is installed, the rain gear is installed, then I'm going to mount the fuse box and wire the car. So anyway, he looked around for it and he couldn't find it. And I ended up going out to my shed and pulling a whole bunch of crap out in the yard, just because it's a packed full of garbage. So I got into the back of the shed and I found that one, and I actually think it's from his car, because we had threw a bunch of parts from his extra parts in my truck one time over there. He gave me all his old stuff, and at the time he knew he was getting a vintage air kit, it was his plan then. And anyway, it ended up, I guess I brought that home because I have an extra one. I already have one, and it's kind of blasted for my wife's car, so that one's accounted for. So I don't really understand where that one come from. So it has to be his. But as you can see, it's pretty rough. But I'm gonna blast it, and it'll get painted, and I'll try to paint up inside the best I can. But I want to blast all this stuff the same day. So anyway, he brought this, and I got the other part too, the squirrel cage housing and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, he has new cables on it. There's new cables in my house in a box that went to the heater control unit. So somebody has put new heater control cables on, which he said his dad did a bunch of work to that heater core, heater stuff, and got his heater working for him years ago. So anyway, it's been spray painted, and you can see the, obviously spray paint and not prepped very well, but you see a lot of this heater box when it's installed in the car. You see a lot of this, like it hangs way down under the dash. So this has to be, really nice. Now I do my own thing to these heater boxes, and it's a really nice, the end result is really, really nice. So it has these little bitty short Phillips screws in here all over the place. They're all in this box. And I changed these out to stainless steel that I polish on the buffing wheel. I don't sand them or anything. I just stick them up there on the buffing wheel and zap them, and it polishes them up real nice, so it doesn't really take that long. But the other thing that I like to do is I remove the original studs that go through the firewall, because you see the hardware outside on the firewall. I'll remove these out of this box, and I will weld stainless steel bolts in from the back side. Now one of them has to be a button head, or the head has to be ground down real far because it interferes with the heater core itself. But anyway, there's spray paint on the cable, so I'm sure acetone or lacquer thinner will probably take that off and not hurt that CAD coating on there, or zinc, whatever it is. But I was glad the cowl plate was there. It's actually zip tied to it, so that thankfully that's there. That way I don't have to dig in my shed. So I'm going to buzz this apart. I need to inspect the heater core because we're going to be putting a new one in it and a new valve, and start off with new parts. Alright, the heater core is looking pretty crusty, man. Looks like it had been leaking right here at the hose. That hose is hard as a rock. But anyway, when you tear into one of these deluxe heaters, it has a heater valve in here. And these are usually seized up. I just always replace it, and I replace the heater core because you don't want to get it all restored and put it in a restored car with your old crap and then it blow out 2 months later and leak antifreeze all over your brand new carpet and soak your jute padding under your carpet and all that kind of crap. So just gonna do it and be done with it, and then it's finished. So I'm just kind of looking at it to see if I see any soldered spots from where it's been leaking. Like usually these have been repaired before, and you'll usually find telltale signs of that. Yeah, I don't see any solder joints, but so there's a lot of there's gonna be a lot of work just restoring the heater box, but you know, this will all get blasted and cleaned up. This inside, I always paint the inside and the outside, so this is really smooth and slick. In my opinion, my thought process, when all the inside of this stuff is painted really well, air flows through it a lot nicer over a slick surface than it would be this old rough crap. But also you'd have the smell and all these smells and stuff, and just get it all painted and then it's all shiny and new. So I'll show you. This is the back side of the studs. This is like a little small, basically just a really thin flat head stud, and the studs go through there, and these are always way too long. So anyway, I do stainless steel bolts that are just a little bit shorter, and that way you don't have quite as much. But what you end up with is something that looks a little bit nicer, because what I will do is I'll get the bolts and then I will buff on my buffing wheel all of the studs on this bolt, make this all polished and shiny. And I usually, on the end of them right here, into the stud, I take a Scotch-It disc on my 90-degree angle grinder and I slick that off where it's really nice and smooth. Then I polish all of it on the buffing wheel, and then the end of this is really nice, because usually the end of a bolt is kind of indented a little bit and it's not very nice to see when it's polished. So anyway, that'll all be polished, and then we'll go back and put stainless steel nuts, washers and stuff on there, and you'll see that on the firewall. You'll have a polished stud and polished nuts. It'll look really nice. But this will be a pretty neat little series, because I got to restore the whole unit, you know. Alright, so I got the screens as well, and I didn't notice this one. Look how bad pitted that is. Golly. Those are deep rust craters, man. I have to have another one of these. There's actually a rust hole right there in that. And you see those are in the bottom of the kick panels. This is for your fresh air from your cowl. This one's nice. This one's really nice, actually. And when he was here and I was pulling that stuff out, this is the one I pulled out. I was like, yeah, these are really nice. I didn't notice that this one was wasted. That freaking sucks, man. I don't know if I have one of these here or not. I might have one of those extra. Anyway, this is basically your squirrel cage housing and all that kind of stuff. And somebody has actually put a piece of rubber on here and they screwed it into the housing. And of course the screws don't match, they're all different, and I don't know, that this part of the box is not even up against where it's supposed to be. I don't know if that's bent, or I have to inspect that. It looks like the door's about to, oh, I hope that door's not broken. That is not good, guys, not good at all right there. I think it'll be all right. It's pushed up. This arm has a long rod on it, and it's just pushed up and allowed that to pop out, so I'll be able to put that back in. Now I take all this apart. I'll take all this linkage off. This will all be painted and detailed separately with a couple of different colors to give it some a little bit more detail, splash of color. So all this will come apart, and then these three studs right here also get replaced with stainless steel. Now, I'm going to let you guys in on a little something I figured out. Now, I usually get my parts at O'Reilly's because I have a mechanic's discount there. None of the other places in my local town gave me a discount. So I go to the one that gives me a discount, which is O'Reilly's. They're not a sponsor, but when you go there, or even get online and look online, if you're looking for a blower motor and you say a Bel Air 55, it won't bring nothing up. If you do click on the 210 series, I think there was an option that said 210 or something, that blower motor comes up as a VDO brand unit, and it's like $25 for a brand new blower motor. These blower motors from the Tri-5 suppliers are 3 times higher. So anyway, that's another thing we're going to replace is this, because these original ones, they get gummy inside from all the old oil or whatever grease, whatever's in there. They get gummed up and they get sticky. And even though you can spin that squirrel cage and it feels like it's okay, you'll turn it on and it'll be running and it'll overheat. So, and most usually it'll just lock up trying to reuse an old one. But it's very expensive to restore a heater box assembly, a deluxe heater box, to replace all the parts necessary. You know, so it's actually restored, but that's what is going to happen. And then color-wise, these things had, you know, like a gray hammer tone style color on them. And I never was a fan of hammer tone paint. When you paint something with hammer tone, to me it looks like the painter didn't know what he was doing and his paint kind of coagulated, or it's working against itself. So I like to use like a gray pearl color that's kind of similar to what was on there, and I just think it looks better. But anyway, that's what we're probably going to do, is paint this a gray color. I have a lot of different grays here. I have Killer Gray Pearl, that's actually the name of it. I have another one that's called Carbon Fiber Pearl. So I'm going to kind of check those over and just kind of see what I decide. I think I have the heater box out of, I think it was the 2-door, I think. And it's all rusted, like surface rusted, but the back side of it where it was up against the firewall pad still has the original color, so I'll have something to kind of go off of. And I'm not going to go have paint matched and mixed and all that kind of stuff, and spend the extra money. I'm going to try to use what I have here to save Steve a little bit of money. But anyway, that's just kind of what I'm going to do there. So I did have a buddy of mine, he watches the videos, and he made the comment of, you're using a whole bunch of your stuff that you're going to be needing for your wife's car and your 2-door post-project car. And I was like, yeah, I know. And what I'm going to probably end up doing is the final time when Steve's car is done, I'm just going to kind of figure out, because obviously the paint I have is a full gallon. It's not going to take a gallon to paint that heater box. So it'll be like a coffee cup full, you know what I mean? So I'm just going to kind of go through and just kind of try to do a figure on some of the stuff I've used. Like I've used a lot of lacquer thinner for cleaning my paint guns and stuff, and I haven't charged him for any of that yet. But it'll just be kind of a final thing, and I'll call it shop materials. But I'm not going to gouge him stupid like some shops would and put on their $1,000 for shop supplies. You know what I mean? It's not going to be nothing like that. But I do have to replace. I have used a couple of things that I have for my wife's car on his car, and I'll definitely have to replace that stuff. So anyway, that's where I'm at. And here's the tote that he brought. So he's got his sun visors in here. There's the rear pieces that go on the interior, but he has all his door panel stainless, his original Bel Air door panel stainless, which I think is awesome. There's the rears, here's the fronts, and the V's are on it. They're taped to it for the door panel. And then these are for the seat shells. And one of these had a dinger in it, or 2 dings when I was looking at them the other day. These are difficult to get dings out because they have an insert in the back of them for them studs, so you can't really get access back there. And I have a bunch of these here. I think I have 2 pair in my attic, so if I have a nice one, I'll give it to him. But I'll definitely have to go through my whole stash and make sure I have a nice set for my wife's car and a nice set for my other car. But anyway, if I've got It's just the way it is. I have extra parts laying around, and I would rather them go to good use on his car than just set in my attic or set in my shed. So anyway, it's just kind of the way it is. But as far as the materials goes, I do kind of have to replace that stuff because I'm going to be needing it, you know what I mean? But anyway, I'll keep it affordable for him. Well, don't quote me on this, but I think I just figured something out that is definitely not correct. So usually that screen is for like the standard heater, not for the Deluxe. Now the Deluxe will have this jalopy here on it, and what I'm looking at is I didn't take that screw out yet. That screw's gone, and then somebody's put 2 oddball screws in there. So I'm wondering if this is a 210 squirrel cage housing right here. So I may have to go dig in my shed and see if I have a nicer one to swap out. I mean, it'll work, but I just don't like how it's assembled, because again, you see a lot of this hanging underneath the dash. So I'll have to investigate that a little bit further. I'm pretty sure that screen is not on a Deluxe heater. I don't think it'll hurt anything, but still yet. Alright, so this is an original Deluxe heater box assembly here. Well, the half of it anyway. But I thought this piece was from the other side, but it's not. This is the face side. But it does have the gray hammer tone still on it. So I'm going to polish up this spot right here, and I'm just going to see which one of my grays matches the closest. That's all I'm doing. I'm not going, you know, I'm not putting in a whole bunch of effort. But this thing is crusty. Look how deep the pitted rust is on that. I think this was in one of the 55s that Randy brought me, but definitely not usable. I mean, it could be. You'd have to be blasted, then all this would have to be puttied, and it'd have to be all primed and then blocked out, and you'd have to treat it like a body panel to make it super nice. But I think I have one in my shed that Uncle Terry brought me a long time ago, I think last summer. So that's the one I'll be using for my 2-door post project, because it's going to have a Deluxe heater in it. But anyway, I'm going to polish up a spot, and then we'll take it out in the sun and have a look and just kind of show it in the sun. Alright, so I just used a little bit of like buffing compound on that spot right here. I got it out here in the sun, so I'll be able to go off one of them colors in there. But you can see that hammer tone finish. See how it looks just modelly. I mean, it's hammer tone. It's what it's supposed to do. For me, being a painter, it bothers me to put on paint that makes it look like it had a reaction, you know what I mean? So I want to use regular paint. It'll just look nicer. So anyway, I need to pick a color. All right, so the little splotch right there on the right is carbon fiber metallic or pearl. I don't know what it said. The other one is killer gray pearl, and it's kind of hard to really get a good color off of it. But to me, the killer gray pearl, it has like it looks like red or pink or some kind of pearl in it. That ain't gonna work, man. That is not gonna work. But the carbon fiber metallic, that color is really close to the original. So we have a winner. So it's going to be carbon fiber, metallic or pearl. I don't remember what that said. I'll have to look at the label, unless there's paint all over it. Carbon fiber metallic. That's what that is. And these are both base coat, clear coats. And I got kind of the top side of it blasted here a little bit, but the compressor was just running non-stop. I'm afraid it's going to burn itself up again, so I'm going to let it take a smoke break. I tried blasting in here. This is where I stopped. I did the top and then started working the vents, and I got to here and stopped. It needs a little bit more on that edge, but I'm sticking that blast nozzle as far in there as I can, and then on the big slot on the bottom where the air goes through here, I stuck the nozzle down in here and up that way and this way. So I'm trying to get as much crap as I can out of it. And there's a mouse nest in there. You can see remnants of it right there. But there's stuff coming out in the media. When I drain it out, it's get all the stuff out of it, I guess, except that little bit. That's going to take a while to get that blasted, and then I'm just going to paint that black, and then I can go ahead and get this screwed to underneath of the dash. Then I can go ahead and put the rain gear in, and then I can mount the fuse box and then start running wires. All right, so I got the defrost ducts painted. I just used some epoxy black that I had here. It goes under the dash, you never see it. So I blasted it and, you know, cleaned it all up. And I actually poured, I didn't have any brake clean, but brake clean will get the urine, mouse urine smell out of stuff. So I used lacquer thinner out of a gallon can, and I just dumped a bunch of it down in those vents and kind of sloshed it around and let it run out. And it doesn't smell like anything now. So, well, it smells like paint, but you get what I'm saying. So I got the duct painted, so now I need to install it. So what I used to put the defrost ducts in a 55 Chevy is just some number 8 stainless steel Phillips screws. The factory ones, I think they take, it's a screw, but I think it takes a nut driver instead of a Phillips bit. But I don't have those. We don't have them from the car, so I'm just going to use these. This is what I have in my car. It's what I'm going to be putting in my wife's car. You can get a big giant pack of these at Lowe's for really inexpensive. So you can use these in the heater box. You can use them in your little covers that go on your doors. You can use these screws for a lot of stuff. They're identical to factory. They're just stainless steel. So the good thing about these is you can just hold on to them and hit them on your buffing wheel on the top there, and it'll polish it up real nice. You don't have to sand them or anything. I'm not going to polish these because you absolutely don't see them, but I'm definitely using stainless where I can. That way, you know, nothing rusts. So anyway, I need to get the defrost duct screwed in underneath the dash, and then I'm going to install this monstrosity over here on the driver's side, and this is the main reason we had to relocate the fuse box, which in turn caused us to have to get a new harness. So I don't have to extend a whole bunch of ignition switch wires and column wires, and don't want to do any extending crap. I want to put nice, you know, do a new harness, and it's done nice. It's done right. So that's what we're going to do. The other harness is about 15 years old anyway. There was actually a couple of the wires in that harness that felt kind of stiff. So I'm kind of glad we're changing it, you know what I mean? But anyway, that's the plan. Get the defrost duct in, bolt the rain gear system in. Then I'm going to try to figure out where I'm going to mount the harness, the fuse box, because he got a 21 circuit and it's rather large compared to the 12 circuit that was in it. So I've got to figure out where to put it, but I've also got to figure out what I'm going to do with all the extra wires. There's a whole bunch of wires in that 21 circuit kit that we're not going to use, that are just going to be, you know, left over. I don't want to cut them all completely out. I do want to kind of roll them up, zip tie them, and I'll stuff them in somewhere. I usually stuff them up inside this right here, down in the cowl area right there. That way, if he ever does add power windows or something like that to the car, the wires will be in there. But I'm gonna get started. Well, I forgot to put the defrost duct in these cars. You gotta have the brake pedal assembly out. I can't get it finagled up over the top of that, so that's awesome. So now I gotta take the brake booster off the firewall, and it's a good thing that I never did go through here and put fluid in this and bleed the brakes. So, thank goodness. I undid all the lines off the proportioning valve, and now I've started taking the nuts off there. So I got to pull that off the car so I can pull the complete pedal assembly out of the car. Okay, so I got brake booster master cylinder off. So now I've got to pull the pedal assembly out, which is pretty simple once you get all that stuff off. And so I didn't install this, so let's take a look at it. That's custom. So there's supposed to be a rubber bumper that goes on that for the pedal, and I think that's a piece of hose. What the heck is that, man? Huh. That's hard as a rock. It's supposed to be a rubber bumper that goes in there, so that's going to be put on. Oh my gosh, this thing sounds crunchy, gritty. And the pedal's kind of sticky too. Alright, so this is going to have to be taken apart and lubed and everything else, cleaned and lubed. Well, I'm glad I had to take that out. I mean, it turned into more work, but I can't stand that rig stuff like that over $1.25 rubber bumper that goes in there, you know what I mean? Golly. And I'll tell you guys something that I've done before. You've got your 4 studs that come out of the firewall, and you see that when the hood's up. Now on my car, I changed these out to stainless steel. So what I did was I cut off the studs and then drilled them out and then put stainless steel bolts in from the backside. I polished them first. Then I stuck them back in there from the backside, and I welded the heads to the mounting there. So you have stainless studs outside the firewall. And I've got ARP nuts and lock washers on my studs, but you could put acorn nuts on here. Acorn nuts would be a very nice complement to that out there on the firewall, and the main reason it doesn't show any studs with an acorn nut. But these are fine thread. These are 3/8 by 24 fine thread. That thing was so rusty, I like to never got the pin out of it. That's the first one I've ever had that was that hard to get out of there. That thing was, I mean, crunchy. Golly. So this is going to have to be, I'm going to have to emery that, sand it really, really nice to get it out of there. This has been messed with, it looks like. Huh. Yeah, somebody's jacked with this. If you get to looking at that, you can see like there's a weld right there and a weld right there. I don't think that's stock, guys. I'm gonna have to get another one and look at it. But you can see these marks in it that they painted over. Looks like they used a chisel or something, and maybe they didn't know how to get it out. Huh. I used a brass punch. I used that flat blade to try to pry that out from this way, and it was just stuck. I ended up having to hammer it on out of there, but yeah, that's pretty crusty. So here's the spring. Yeah, that bushing's shot. There's not even a side left on this one. I have to get some bushings for this. Man, I can't believe the rust on that. Well, that's good that I went in there and found that. That pedal would have been that pedal would have been a mess, man. It probably wouldn't have come up half the time, probably been sticky, the brake lights would have stayed on, killed the battery, that type of crap. So I'm going to go through and redo this. I think I have a spare pedal assembly. I think there's one in that 56, so I think I'm going to go take it out of that car and see if it's in any better shape. I don't want this hackery in there. Guess I need to go see if that pedal assembly's in there first. Well, I got the defrost duct mounted in there, and the very end ones, the one on the far end on this side and this side, they were a real pain because you couldn't see the hole, so I had to get up in there and kind of bend and twist on that defrost duct to get the screw started. It was quite the pain in the butt, but anyway, this is the kind of mess you get into, I guess. But if you haven't caught on to all the other videos, if you're pretty new, so this car was done at another shop to a certain point, and then Steve had it brought back home, and then it ended up coming over here, and a lot of stuff had to be redone. Now, original design of this car was smooth the firewall and weld up the air conditioning stuff, or the heater box stuff, and he was going to put vintage air conditioning kit in here. So when Steve figured out how much it's going to cost to install it, buy the unit and all that, he decided he didn't need air conditioning. So now we're putting the factory heater stuff back in, so we had to put the defrost duct system back in here because Vintage Air has its own setup. So in order to put that in, the brake pedal assembly had to be taken out, and then I'm still finding hackery, which I just found on the brake pedal, so I get to redo that. Man, what a mess. Absolutely a mess. Now, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it. Now I got the light over here. So, this is not how I do sheet metal work, but this is the way some people do it. So there's two holes in the firewall here. This is for your heater hoses. So your heater core ports will go out of there, and then your heater hoses go on it. So instead of butt welding metal in there, they welded that on the back side, so you can imagine how thick the filler is out there on the firewall right there. That is cheesy and not good quality. So what I got to try to do is get these drilled back out without tearing up paint, and that's not going to be fun. Man, I tell you, eventually I'll have the hackery out of this car one of these days, man. I'm amazed I'm still finding stuff and I'm this far in on the car. So I don't have another automatic pedal assembly here. All I have is a standard shift for a spare. The 56 Steve bought for parts doesn't have a pedal assembly in it, so that kind of sucks. I don't remember if that car was standard or automatic anyway. But what I would like to do is replace that, the main pin that goes on the side of that, because somebody's messed with this. This is not factory. This is, and look how crooked that is. That's custom. That is, unless it's supposed to be bent like that. I mean, I wouldn't think it would be. So, I mean, these obviously don't look correct. I'm not really sure. I don't know that that'll work. I hate to tear up a 4-speed pedal assembly because my cousin Eric has a 55 4-door that he's got a Muncie 4-speed he's wanting to put in it. It's an automatic car and he's wanting a pedal assembly. So I hate to tear that one up. But I don't know if this can be bought or not. That might be why this thing's kind of rough and sticky, is because they welded it crooked. But this thing's been butchered on and hacked on, so I don't know. Is that supposed to be angled like that? It doesn't look right. I like to never got it out of there. It doesn't even want to fit, man. That thing should slide in there really nice. Oh, I can't get it back out. That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to have to, I think I'm going to have to go to a salvage and get a pedal assembly. That's just ridiculous. I hate hacks. I hate hacks. Alright, so what I found was where somebody has welded this on, it's not welded. This actually moves on there. So when I stuck this back down in there, I sanded it and then sanded inside there, cleaned it up a little bit so this actually goes in there like it's supposed to. This thing was sticking up really bad. Of course, now it won't go in there. It was sticking up really high. It wasn't smashed down into the pedal. It was sticking up. So I used my little ball peen and I tapped it one time and it fell down in there. So this is actually loose on this, which is not a good thing, because if this pin falls out of that, the brake pedal will fall out and then you won't be able to stop the car. So I need to pull this out. I need to blast this, and I'm going to run a bead around this, and that should fix it. So I'm going to put the bolt in it and just kind of run the nut down snug. After I blast it, I'm going to put it back in here. Then I'm going to put a couple tacks on it, and then I'm going to pull it out and weld it all up. That way it's exactly where it needs to be and it won't be on there crooked. But at least now it goes in there like it's supposed to. It was just really, really crusty and had some burrs on it. So that'll fix that. I need a bushing set, and I need the rubber bumper that goes in here for the brake pedal. And I want to go ahead and get a brake light switch. The one in the car, when you hook up the meter to it and you push on it, it was registering on the meter like 2 or 3 times out of like 5, 6, 7 times. So it's kind of intermittent working. It almost kind of looks original. So we're gonna have to get a new brake light switch. I don't want to put some old piece of crap electrical thing in there and have electrical issues. So I need quite a bit of parts just for the brake pedal assembly itself. And I think we need a rubber pad for the brake pedal. I don't remember if he bought one or not. I'll look in that box up there. There may be one. But anyway, I'll have to fix somebody's hackery and then get rid of their rubber bumper idea they had there. So if you don't have that rubber bumper in there and you're driving down the road, your pedal will have a little bit of a metal sound. Sometimes they'll squeak. So it's supposed to be a little rubber bumper in there. And if you have the 4-speed, I think there's 2 of them on those. Yeah, there's one. This is what the factory one's supposed to look like right here. And then the 4-speed one is actually on this side. Or, well, I'm calling it a 4-speed, but you get what I'm saying. The standard shift for 3-speed factory one, there's a rubber cushion that goes on that one. So anyway, I think I'm going to give this to my cousin Eric because he's going to need it for his 55. Again, another family member, you know, needs a part for his 55, and I've got it laying around here, so there's no sense in this staying around here when someone can use it in their car. Alright, so I got Steve's heater control out here, and that lens is pretty fried. Looks like it might be cracked over there on the left. I can't really tell. I don't have my glasses on. It just kind of looks like it's cracked. It does have the knobs on it, but these levers, which are usually broken, these look like they're new, but these doesn't even work right. It's like binding up. This one lever has a bend in it, and that other one looks straight. So I don't know what's up with that. So we're just gonna have to put some new levers in it. I've never seen that before. Somebody's put new cables on it, which is really cool. And then I was digging through his box of parts, and he has a new chrome face here, new bezel. So that's pretty cool. And he's got a new switch. That's really cool. So we need to get some parts for this. I assumed we was going to put levers in it anyway before I dug it out of the box and looked it over. So levers are pretty cheap anyway. They're always usually broken, but you can tell those have been replaced. They're just, I don't know what brand they are, but they're not made right. They're like overlapping each other. Looks like that clip's about to come off there. I got to take it apart anyway. So I will take it apart, clean everything, get the lens off, the face of it off, and then I'll respray the, it has to be painted green up inside there for reflection to make it look green. So I'll respray that. So there's a little bit of restoration stuff to do on that side of it. But I had to take a break from working on these wipers, man. It's irritating me. I guess I'm going to have a person get in here and hold this side over here while I tighten it out there, because every time I go to tighten it, it moves. So I can't keep that at a 1/2 inch by myself. So the only thing I can think is try to figure out something that's 1/2 inch thick to like stick down in between there to bind it up on there. But with it being curved, I don't know what you're supposed to measure a 1/2 inch off of. I mean, that's really some silly stuff there. But hopefully the thing will work right.